Hi, Tony. Good afternoon. It's quite dark. Um, Give me a second. It's still quite dark. Oh, okay. Okay. All right. Uh, I think we should just use your screen then. Yeah, to present. Um, the screen share option, top left, just below the chat button.
So are you going to take Joshua off?
Okay, I think. Yep, I think we're up. Yeah. Okay. Right. That's done. Yep, yep. And
Wait, bring it. You made some promises. Let me know when you guys are ready.
yeah, sure.
What's the hold up?
Okay.
What's the hold up?
I'm trying to look at the live page.
You're trying to what?
I'm looking at the live page to be sure that the presentation is sharing. Okay. All right, I think we're ready to go. We've got. Okay, so good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to our another episode of our webinar session. Today we have Tolu Additional with us, and yeah, she's going to be taking us through the process of delivering quality products using the Agile methodology. Our topic is actually initiative initialization operating model, right? And so I would like them to do introduction of herself and she'll run through the topic. But before then, if you are just joining us for the first time, you are on to the Cousant Connect webinar series. And Cousant Connect is a specialized outsourcing service. What we do is we connect tech talent, so you developers, project managers, business analysts, and everybody in tech to companies looking for services that you offer, right? And so we've been doing this before. We've had several other sessions, one on data science, another one on AWS, and different other sessions that you can catch up on our YouTube channel. And today, Tolu Adesina will be taking us through this topic, and I hope you find this as engaging and as interactive as always. Uh, as she goes on, you can leave in your questions in the chat section, and then at the end of the presentation, we'll fit each and every one of your questions, one after the other. And looking forward to having a great session with you. All right, Tolu.
Thank you. Okay, so I will introduce myself. The format of the session is that I'm just going to run through a few details. I'm going to try and put in some examples, but if anything is not clear, please ask questions and I'll try and go over it again at the end. So I'll leave some time at the end for questions. So a little bit about me. I started off my career actually in a very technical role. So I started off, I've always been in financial services industry, but I started off as an apprentice working for a bank in the United Kingdom called Royal Bank of Scotland, and I was a senior Oracle DBA. So I was very much into the projects world, but I was very much on the technical side of things. So anyone who knows how a project lifecycle works, there'll be some decisions that was made by senior people in the business. They will say they want to change something. It would affect technology, and it would be my job to deliver it. I did that for about 7 years, and I found that the more I went down through my career, the more interested I was in how to turn problems or ideas into solutions or into reality. But being on the technical end of it, you're not part of the conversation that's happening when business leaders get in a room and decide what they want to invest their money in. And that part really interested me. So I decided to go and train up as a business analyst. So I left the technical space and I went and I got a few qualifications in business analysis. And I went on to be a business analyst for a few banks. And I did everything from execution management. Anyone who knows about banking would know that there are many different parts of the financial services industry. I've done quite a lot in the financial services industry. And then from being a business analyst, I became a lead business analyst. And then I went on to become a project manager. And now I'm a lead program manager. And all that means is that I have many different programs or projects underneath me that are covering different areas. And my job is to make sure that they run smoothly, deliver to time, and deliver to budget. So the topic that I'm covering actually is something that I've worked through all through my career. So I'll try and give some different types of examples because I've done everything from customer product management to working with institutional clients, so big banks or financial regulators, to working with stock exchanges. So I've done quite a bit. So hopefully that will translate in some of the things that I'm going to talk about. So if you're looking through the slides, the first bit that I want to go through, the topic is managing client deliveries using Agile. So I'm obviously going to talk a lot about the Agile operating model. So I thought I would start there. So the Agile operating model, for anyone who understands projects. The project life cycle starts from the moment you have an idea or a process or a project that you want to implement, right through to when you've implemented it and it's now being used on a day-to-day basis, that support that you give at that project cycle. We call that post-implementation support, right? So right from initiation, where you think up something that needs to be done, right through to post-implementation support. I've worked across the life cycle and the different methodologies that you can use to deliver projects. So you can use waterfall, you can use Agile. There's so many different methodologies out there. Agile is still relatively new, I guess, in that a lot of people are only just starting to use it in the way that it's supposed to be used. And so what I've got here is a picture that shows from the start to the finish, what are the different steps that are included and that you should be considering. And because we're talking about customer deliveries, I've tried to make it very customer specific. Depending on your business, however, if you're somebody that works in a business that's dealing with just operational staff and you're not dealing with external customers, so if you're working in a bank, the strategy of that bank might be that they want to make a certain amount of money by the end of the year, or they want to improve a particular process that customers have been complaining about, and they want to see some tangible benefits to them putting money behind your project. So there's always some kind of initiative that they need to think of. So the first thing that needs to happen is you need to create something that's going to show senior leaders what the opportunity and the benefits to the project would be. We call that an opportunity canvas. And all that is you're looking at what are we trying to achieve, right? What we're trying to achieve here. Maybe we've been having loads of customers complain about our websites. They've been saying that our websites, they can't just, if they want to buy something, they can't just go on the website and just click a button and it'll take them all the way through to put in their address and then they'll get their product. There's so many different steps to it, or maybe it falls over at different points, or whatever the case might be. Or in a banking situation, which is the world that I know, it could be something like a client wants to come and open an account with you. And for them to open an account, it takes 10 days and they need to go through so many hoops for them to be able to just do that opening of an account. And it just is a clunky process. So they're not happy about it. So you've done your research, right? That's the first start to your initiative. Either you're losing money somewhere, your processes are falling over somewhere, people are not happy about something. That's the start to your initiative. And you need to look at everything from that moment on. So we know we have the customer, but you have a process, a workflow in-house, right? You have the people that will do the technology build. You have people that will be the ones talking to the customers. You have people that will be the ones maybe key in, maybe your data analysts, people that will key in information into the system. You might have people that are going to design your website. So the design team, the UX team. You might have people that are more concerned about the customer journey. So maybe they're the ones that are just worried about how is the customer experience whenever they touch our business? What is the experience of our business? All of those people matter when you're thinking of changing any part of your workflow, any part of your work or your business life. When you're thinking about changing that, it's not just worrying about your customers that are bringing your money in, but every single person that's going to be affected in line with that. So you're thinking, what are we trying to achieve? And then you're thinking, what are the key activities, the key objectives, and the key results that I want from whatever it is that we're looking at. So you need to look at what are your benchmarks, what are your measures of success, what are the different opportunities that this is going to afford your business if you make this change, and what are the key resources within your business that you need to make this change. So do you need to employ external vendors? So maybe you need to bring another company in to partner with you to help you build whatever you need to build, or you need to think about the place and channel that you need to build it in. So for you, it will be, how would the customer discover our solution? So if it's a website and we're making some changes to the website, at what point will the customer notice those changes? What do we need to educate them on so that they can benefit from those changes? And what channels do they use to interact with us? Do they use their mobile phone more than they use their laptops or their desktops? Those kind of things matter to how you're going to go ahead and deliver a change to a customer. internal or external. So the first part of what you're trying to look at when it comes to an opportunity canvas in any operating model is what you're trying to achieve. And then the next thing you're going to look at from there is what are the goals for everybody that's going to be aligned to this initiative. So you've identified your process pain points, and that just means the bits that are causing everybody headache. The bit that's causing everybody to moan every time that a customer calls you and like, you still haven't solved this problem, or maybe internally between one team to the other, there's just something that causes some kind of rift. That is a process pain point. And that comes from observations, it comes from feedback, and that would help you define, if you can detail what those feedback is and that observation, from that you can define what your program goals should be. So that's your high level goals. We want to allow clients or customers to be able to update for themselves all their information online using our websites. That is a program goal. That's a high level goal that you're trying to achieve. Right? Who are the different people that are going to interact with that process? So there's a customer that's going to go onto your website and is going to go and type something in to make a change. There's a designer that's going to go and design the different screens that the client's going to see when they interact with that. There's a back end technical team that's going to connect that to some kind of a database that's going to store that information. There is a team that's going to be looking at making sure that what they're putting in is the right format. So if they're putting their email address in, the email address is not in a format that it's not actually a real email address. Or if they're putting the phone numbers in, if the number for the numbers should be 10, they're not putting in 9. So therefore you're not getting the real number. So there's many different people that are interacting with that process and that product, right? It's not just the customer that just wants to go and be able to key in a change on the website. If you're thinking like that, then you're able to then determine what the goals for each of those people would be. And that becomes your solution. That becomes what you're actually going to be producing. That's what you're going to be working on for the next 3 months, 6 months, 8 months, whatever it might be. And then when you figure that out, then you can talk about what are the behaviors that we expect from those who use our products. Who are your customer base? Are your customer professionals that have no time and they do everything on their mobile phone and they need everything to be done in 3.5 seconds? Or are they housewives that have a little bit more free range, but only at certain time of the day, maybe when the kids are in school, and they've just got maybe an hour's window, but they're able to go on a laptop and do some more work? Whatever it might be, you need to figure out who your customer base is and what the behaviors you might expect from them would be. That would determine the channel, the place, the kind of benefits that you should be thinking of including. That would determine what kind of experience the customer would be expecting to have from your product. And then that would help you determine how you should align yourself to that particular benefit, right? And it will also help you determine what your priorities are. We can't do everything all at once, right? Customers are always going to want the world from you, but there is not enough money in the world that means that you can do it all in one go. So you need to prioritize whatever you're delivering. And that comes from understanding the behaviors, understanding your customers, understanding the different people that are going to be part of that value chain, right? So that's the first thing you need to do, is look at what makes up your opportunity canvas, right? So if I go back to the operating model, that's the first part you can see here. That's a start for you. Once you've determined what's in your opportunity canvas, maybe it's a small team that's done that, you're then going to present it back to the senior leaders and say, based on what we've done, we've been able to look at what the opportunities are for our business. We've been able to do some measures of success. We've been able to identify the customers and what we can bring to them. We've looked at how this would affect revenue and the benefits it will bring to our business. And we've been able to identify and do some research about the cost. Because if you go to anybody and say, I want to deliver this great product and it's going to bring in 30 million to our business in 2 years, but it's going to cost us 45 million just to build it, nobody's going to answer you. So you need to know what the cost is, the build versus buy. If, can we buy it off the shelf and make it work for us? Or do we need to customize it, which will cost us more? All of those things will go into your opportunity canvas that you can present back to your key stakeholders. Those are the decision makers, right? The people that are going to actually make the decisions of what to prioritize, what to invest in, what to do next based on the business strategy that they might have. The business strategy might be for the year might be that we want to grow our business base, maybe attract new customers. If the work that you're bringing to them is not going to do that, they're not going to go ahead and invest in that particular project. But if the work that you're doing is aligned to their business strategy. So they want to strengthen their core base. They want to attract new customers. And you're coming to them and saying, if we do this, we're going to be competitive, because all of our competitors are doing the same thing and they're doing it better than us right now. But I think we can do it. We can do it just as well. Then they will take you seriously, and then they will be able to help you determine how to move ahead. So this is a very, very key part of client delivery, is understanding that nothing you're delivering should be outside of your business strategy. Because if it is, you've wasted money and you will not achieve what you wanted to achieve for the year, right? So you're not going to be on target. So that's just the first part that I am focused on here. Just this opportunity canvas is the starting point for everything. I'm going to pause just because I know I've spoken a lot, and I hope I'm not speaking too fast. But I'm going to pause. Please feel free to send your questions in. I won't be taking them during the session, but I will definitely see them at the end, and I will go through them at the end. The rest of the parts is going to go a bit quicker, simply because this part that I focused on, I spent a lot of time on it because I think it's very important. Because a lot of people, if you're a technical person, most likely you don't get to see this part of the process. I know that for the first 7 years of my career, I was more in the execution phase. It's only when they determined all of that I would get something that says, Tolu, go and deliver this, go and build this, right? Go and deliver this, go and build this database. And I wouldn't understand how it affects the customer. But I find that when they did a survey after we had delivered all of our products, they will find that the customer is not using the thing that we spent 36 months doing, and we spent tons of money building. The customer is only using maybe half of it. And you're like, but we spent so much time, we didn't sleep. And it turns out it's because somebody somewhere did not connect the strategy to the product that we were looking to deliver. So it's actually a very key thing to ask those kind of questions, just to help you understand how to drive your delivery. The next thing from there then would be for you to create some kind of a story map. And all a story map is you're mapping the scenario that you have, allow customers ability to change details about themselves online without the need of anybody else. That's your high level goal. You need to break that into some kind of user tasks, into some kind of mapping. So what is it that will be the user activity, right? They will need to go onto the phone or their laptop, click onto something. So that's a user activity. That would generate three different scenarios. Number one scenario is what the client would see. Number two scenario would be what will happen immediately underneath the background. And then number three scenario might be, depending on where you live, what part of the world you live, there are different rules and regulations that people have to follow. So for example, in banks, for instance, they can't accept trading from clients that live in certain countries. They can, but under very strict laws. So they're called jurisdictional laws, right? So the law says if the client's address is here, they cannot do trading with you online, right? Because you need to be able to verify what they're doing based on the fact that they're on a list of countries that they should not be able to have straight through processing for trading. If you breach that, the company might be liable to pay millions in fines, right? So you don't want to do that. You don't want to create anything that's going to cause a breach further down the line. So the third part will be making sure that people like maybe your compliance, your legal team, or maybe audits is included in that part of your conversation. So those are the user activities that you need to define. That's your happy path, What happens if everything happens perfectly fine? Then you need to decide what happens if things don't happen perfectly fine. Your sad path, your unhappy path, right? Your alternative task and exceptions. So if the client does this, maybe they put in 9 digits instead of 10 digits, what should that exception flow look like, right? So those are things that become your high level user tasks. And then design. So what will your UI look like? High level, it should look like this. It should be consistent with the color scheme of the company, something like that. Then the process controls and any other feedback from, technology would then go into this. This is what you use to create your story map. I don't know if you guys can see, the picture is rather small, so I'll read out what it says to you. I'm on the part that says, how do activities map to each persona? So on the left-hand side, down the column, the left-hand side, it just says user in light gray, goal in dark gray, activity in light blue, and user story in dark blue. All I'm trying to show there is you need to worry about who your user is. So in this case, I've got customer, know your customer analyst, compliance, and business. Then you've got your goal. The goal for the customer is very different to the goal of the analyst, is very different to the goal of compliance, and is very different to the goal of the business. So the goal of the customer in this case is to access the bank's services. The analyst wants to verify the identity of the customer. Compliance wants to monitor risk and ensure that they're complying with any laws. And business wants to give the business, grow the business while managing the risk. Right? So everybody, even though we're all trying to achieve the same thing, we all have different goals, and you need to be able to map that in some kind of way. And then that will determine what the activity per each persona or each user is going to be. So for this case, the activity for the customer is just to process their details. And that would be very different to what the analyst would do, etc., etc. From there, you get your functional requirements, or in Agile, the terminology for it is user story. So that's where you get your user story, because you're just mapping your customer journey, right? Your user experience. So your user story will be things like, given I'm a user, I should be able to provide my identity and contact information. That's one user story. And a user story for an analyst might be something like gather information for enhanced due diligence, right? That's another user story that will build into deliverables for technology. That will build into deliverables for your platform, right? That's how that works. I'm going to move to the next slide, and I'm going to pause. Okay. So once you've got that, right? So I just showed you guys your story map. So you've mapped your story map, right? You've gotten all the different activities that you need to do and the subtask underneath them. The next thing that you're going to need to do after that is now you're going to have to sequence that, and then you can plan whatever your release is going to be. All that means is things like, you have a list of functional requirements, and you have a list of non-functional requirements. Let's call them user stories, because we're talking about Agile. So you've got a list of user stories. They form what we call in Agile your backlog. That's just a full list end-to-end of all your requirements together, right? But you haven't looked beyond that at how to sequence them. And that's going to matter in terms of what are the dependencies between each one. Because there's certain things you cannot do before you do the other thing. So you need to be able to know what that is. So for instance, if you're talking across different platforms, so you've got your website, the front end, but you've got the back end, right? The back end might need to connect to some kind of database to store the information, but at the same time also connect to some kind of a workflow that will let your internal staff know that a client has put in information. They might need to follow up with that client. They might need to call the client, or whatever it might be. They might need to update some documentation outside of that platform, right? So all of those things have dependencies on each other. So you can say, oh, I'm going to design the front end and how the website will look, without caring about the fact that if you put some information in, or the ability for clients to put some information in that front end that has nowhere to go in the back end, things are going to break, right? So you need to be talking to your database team, because they will need to make some changes to allow the information that you're putting in the front end to flow all the way through to the back end in the format that the back end can receive. Things like that is what we do in sequencing and release planning. You're assessing dependencies that's going to inform that sequencing for delivery. You're agreeing systems and teams that are going to be required to support the process, and you're identifying any risk controls or even open questions against each activity. And they're very different ceremonies that happen in Agile, right? You have your backlog, initialization and prioritization. That's the bit where you're creating your story map, the bit that you're creating all your requirements, and you're looking at, what do I need to prioritize? Then you've got where the story grooming. That's where you go into detailed user story writing. So remember, everything you were doing before was high level. Now you need to go in deep and say what systems, what teams, what processes need to actually support this high level user story, right? And then you need to go deeper. You need to start talking about when you click this button, you're going to get this. That goes into your solution requirements, right? That's what I'm talking about here. That all informs your sequencing and release planning. You're developing front to back process models. That just means end to end. What is the process model going to look like, right? In Agile, they use a lot of different terminology, but it means the same thing. End to end, from the moment someone clicks something to the moment that it gets to your desirable end. What does that look like? And you might need to have workshops to get that sorted. You might need to sit with many different people and get in some kind of a collaborative environment where everyone can tell you, if you do this, it's going to break this for me. So we need to come up with a different arrangement, whatever it might be. You don't have, not one team has the solution for the whole process. So everyone needs to be involved in that conversation. And from there, you can create target state models. You know, you've got your current states. What do we have today? Where are we trying to get to? And you can only do that when you do this exercise. And then you can say, right, we're trying to get to, we call it in Agile, they call it the blue sky. They're trying to get to a blue sky, right? That's where you've got everything that's just rosy, it's perfect. But in life, nothing is really perfect, right? So we need to actually break that down. There's some things that we're going to be able to do now. There's some things we're going to have to do later. We call those day 2 or day 3 functions. And some things we're just going to have to say, this is not in scope, either because of budget, either because of the technical overhaul that's going to be needed to get it done, and we cannot do it without disrupting our current business, or whatever it might be. You need to be able to create that kind of a view, because that is very important. It's part of your scope definition. And then you need to identify any data attributes or touch points that are going to be part of this, right? I focus a lot on using websites and so on, but this applies to any industry, to any delivery. You're always looking at what is the attributes that need to go behind what the client can see, right? The things that look all nice and jazzy. What is it, the things that are actually going to drive it on the back end? And what are the touch points and the handoffs? So touch points is, what do you need to touch to make the next thing happen? The handoff is what happens between that one touch point and the other touch point, right? I've put a little definition here for those that maybe don't know what I mean when I say functions. It's just a discrete set of activities that you're delivering either through technology, people, or processes, or all three, to meet a business objective or provide customer value. And the little flow you can see beneath is the flow I showed you initially with the operating model, and it's just showing you where we are in each of this. So we've gone through opportunity canvas, we've gone through story map and functional design. We're now at sequencing, release planning, and creating a backlog. And then you move from there to your finalization process. And that just means where you've got your user stories that you're going to focus on for this particular sprint. And that just means sprint is just how we refer to different deliverables, like deliverable stages, right? So a sprint is normally 3 weeks long, 2 weeks for development, 1 week for QA. And because Agile is different to other methodologies in that it gives you deliveries quicker than maybe waterfall. Waterfall, you have to go through one stage before you can get to the next. In Agile, you can do everything iteratively. That just means you can do it all in parallel. And so you can get prototypes done as you're doing your user stories. Your design team might be creating wireframes, aka prototypes, so that you can see it and say, actually, no, I need extra whatever here, and that will be another user story. That will be happening in parallel. And then you move into your sprint execution, and that's just where you're now saying, technology, we are ready for you. Here is what we want you to build. Technology will then go through the grooming process. That's just them, their analysis process, to go through that and get it from a systems perspective ready to start executing. So they will group your user stories into deliverables, like, they call them epics. Epic 1 might be feature, contact information. Epic 2 might be feature, change design, whatever it might be, right? So that's how you're going to end up grouping it. And from there, you can follow your regular life cycle where you've done your QA, you then go into UAT. And then from UAT, you might go into pilot deployment. So, before you turn it over to production, there might be like a little lag where things are in a pilot mode, and then you turn it over into production, and then your work is complete. It moves over to the business as usual teams, and they take that on a day-to-day basis. But what you've done is you've gone from understanding what the business objective is, right? What is the strategy that you needed to deliver for the business, to add benefit to the business, right through to delivery and a realization of that. And that's really how you manage a client. In summary, how you manage a client delivery end to end using Agile. It allows you to get benefits quicker. You get to see results quicker. You get to try things out, make errors, and change them on emotion. You don't have to do loads of documentation like you would with Waterfall. You don't have to wait before you've created a business document that somebody else, 15 people need to look at it. And then from there, and that will take 3 months. And then from there, none of that happens in Agile. Documentation is very light, but it's still a very detailed process, because if you think about it, the story map is really going through everything that could happen and all the different people it could touch. And then you go into detailed story writing, where you're breaking things down. And then you go into release planning, where you're looking at dependencies, which teams are going to touch it. It's actually quite detailed. It's just you're working quicker using Agile. You're delivering quicker. You're seeing results quicker. And you're able to move to the next thing and the next thing and the next thing without having to wait 36 months to deliver a small change on your platform. So that's really it. That's it. That's just the path to delivery. That's really what I wanted to cover. And this diagram is something that I'm sure Abdul and Cousant and team can share with you after. It's definitely worth keeping as just an image on your desk, and always look and see where you are in the process. Even if you're not running Agile, it's actually very, very useful for whatever it is you're delivering, to always think through, who are the people that are going to be impacted by the change that I'm doing? What are the activities that they care about within that change, to make sure that you're always delivering things that put you in the spotlight as delivering something of benefit, delivering something of worth for whatever your company, your business is, or your platform might be. So yeah, that is it. I think at this point I will pause and I will allow for some questions. And I will then close off by talking about the end-to-end Agile product lifecycle in a way that just gives you a little diagram that you might be able to just take away from it. So let me know if you've got any questions, and I'll happily start taking them from now. Okay, so to end off with, I wanted to just show the end-to-end Agile product lifecycle, because I got this diagram actually from a colleague, and I just thought it was very, very useful in breaking down everything I've just spoken about, right? So number one is always going to be the product or the service vision. So where you're focused on key customer journeys across different touch points and different platforms. And this is across multiple types of industries, solutions, etc. The next thing we'll be looking at capabilities. You're breaking your customer journey down into capabilities. That's where you're doing your story mapping. Then from your story mapping, you're getting features and epics. This is all Agile terminology. And all that is saying is that you're breaking down your story map into user stories and features and epics that you can use to create your full requirement backlog. So they call it a product backlog. It's just, think about your functional and non-functional requirements for your high-level program. What is the requirements that you need? All of that needs to be put into some kind of a backlog, right? And then the next thing you would do is you would prioritize that based on business value, and you use that to create an MVP. And then from there, you plan. And this is where Agile comes in, because the defining and design stages is always going round. So it's never a linear line. It's always a circular line, because it means that there's never an end point to your definition and your design. You're always doing your definition and design. So you're always looking at your user stories and saying, do we need to break this down further? Can we get some design or some prototypes or some wireframes that will show us what this will look like? Because then from there you have more stories and more stories and more stories. It doesn't mean you would never finish your work, because people get worried about that with Agile. It doesn't mean that at all. It just means that you are able to get more granular quicker, and not miss things because it took you so long to get there that you can't go back and fix if you realize there's a problem further down the life cycle. The sprint execution phase just means that's where you're developing and testing, and you're always doing that over and over. And then the last phase is that you're going to your usability testing. That's where you have your UAT, and that's where you're also collecting your the feedback after each sprint. After you've developed something, you're getting feedback, and you're putting it into the next sprint to get better and better and better. And then the final stage, of course, is when you release your product or your functionality to your users, whoever your users might be. So this just gives you a little, like, just a nice little linear view to show what that looks like end to end, right? And that will be the end of my presentation. I will pause again because I don't know if there are any questions or if there's any comments. I'll happily take those. Excellent. That would mean that I was very clear, which is very rare. So hopefully that was useful, and that you guys got something from it. Yeah, and thank you, Cousant, for having me. It was a pleasure. And yeah, I will end. Thank you all.
Awesome, awesome. Thanks a lot, Tolu. Thanks a lot again for that. Um, when I saw 27 slides, 4 of 27, I was wondering that do we still have so much to cover? And apparently we're done in less time than I thought. Yeah, so that was very interesting. And we should expect questions to be streaming in right now, but I see none at the moment. Interesting. That's weird, considering the fact that usually the Q&A parts usually last longer than the actual presentation. But I think you were very clear and crystal, and people are not asking questions much. But yeah, so I was going to ask though. You talked about the Agile methodology and everything. So would you say? I mean, there is So what is the difference between Scrum and Agile for a start?
So it's not that it's completely different, because in Agile you have things like Scrum Masters, product owners, things like that. So within Agile, there are different roles and different responsibilities. I actually have something in my slides that can show you what that would look like. So you'd have the team structure would normally be something like you'd have a product owner, a product leader, your stakeholders, a scrum
Right.
master, which is just the team leaders that can coach engineers, conduct team meetings, facilitate any exceptions removal. They kind of act like coaches by introducing new practices to encourage continuous improvement in the team. Then you'd have like development leads, you have your end users, you have engineers who are your developers and your testers that will collaborate with your product owners, your stakeholders, and your end users when they're delivering the requirements. And then you have your build and release engineers. So Agile actually is a methodology. So the different ways of looking at it, right? There's different roles and responsibilities within Agile that make it run the way it should run. So Scrum is just another type of Agile methodology. It's not separate. It's the same as having Kanban. I don't know if you guys have heard of Kanban. It's just different terms, different, I don't know, seasoning that you add to the same pot of stew, if that makes sense. But it's all Agile, all within Agile methodology.
Right, right. And then again, thanks a lot for that. So at the end of, so you talked about the waterfall methodology and then comparing it to the Agile methodology, right?
Mhm.
And so, how does it work that you can release different parts of a single product and then there's a retrospective or like there's a review of that particular function,
Mhm.
and it's not being in the context of the full product? How does that work?
So this is how I look at it, right? I'll use the example that I've been using about, a customer, we want to give a customer ability to change certain things on a website, and that we're not going to do it all at once. We've done a story map, and each of the lines in our story map, in the user story, is a feature on Epic, right? So those make one Epic, Epic 1, Epic 2, Epic 3.
Okay.
So let's say the first thing we're going to work on within our 3 weeks sprint cycle is we're going to change the settings page that allows them to add new phone numbers or edit new phone numbers or add new email addresses, right? During while we're grooming those stories, the design team can create wireframes. So they can create mock-ups of what that particular screen will look like. So if a client clicks this, they should get this error message. If they do this, and what that basically the design, right? You're doing that as you are writing your user story. So that's an iterative process. Normally what will happen is you finish all your requirements before you even get to looking at what design needs. Then when design does that, then you look at techno. We're saying all of them happens all at once, all together. That's what we're doing in that iterative process. And then when we go to deliver that, we deliver during that sprint execution, delivering the aspects that you've said yes to. So maybe part of it, you're like, actually, let's only concentrate on email because that one doesn't have any complexity. But when we're talking about addresses might have its own complexity. So for the first sprint, we're going to only deliver on addresses and on email. And then we'll look at addresses in sprint 2. So what you've done is you've delivered some part of the functionality to, aligned to your overall goal in one sprint, and the next sprint we'll be looking at addresses. And then after you've done addresses, it might be that the customer wants to be able to upload their passport information into the system, and then the next one might be that the customer wants to be able to upload details for third parties, like maybe their lawyers or their agents, or because you might be dealing with people that are not the ones that do the work themselves, so they might want to add people that can do it on their behalf. Maybe a husband wants to add the details of his wife. That's another sprint. So you're always delivering functionality. You're going round and round and round. You're delivering functionality, but you're not waiting till all of the requirements are gathered and finalized before you start. The bit that you can get that done now. Am I making sense?
Yeah, that makes sense.
That's how you're doing it over and over, and that's how you're able to deliver a lot quicker, a lot faster. And you might deliver something, and then when you get to looking at postal addresses versus email addresses, you might be like, actually, now we need to change something in email to match something we made a change in address. But because your wireframes are already there, because you've got your structure already, the change is actually a lot more minimal than if you're waiting to the end and then you realize that you can't deliver everything all at once, and then you're based on waterfall, you've wasted a year trying to deliver something that ended up being redundant. But actually, it's quicker to market. That's why people like Agile. Within 2 months, you can get something to a customer rather than waiting to the end of the year to give everything all at once. You can be giving that to them bit by bit, and they can be enjoying the benefits of your products quicker than waiting to get it. By the time they wait to the end of the year, your competitor might have come with something completely new. So you now, everything you've been working on last year then becomes redundant. But if you've been giving them stuff, they feel like, okay, we're at least getting change constantly coming in from this this product. Am I making sense?
Yeah, that makes sense. That makes a lot of sense. Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot for that. We don't have questions from the participants though. So I think that we should kind of call this, put an end to this and call it a day. So thank you very much, Lulu, for taking our time.
Thank you.
Would you make the presentation available? Maybe a watered down version for something for the
I'm happy to do that. Yeah, I can send that to you guys offline to send to your participants.
Awesome. That would be great. And I'm sure they would really like that. All right, Tolu, thanks a lot for being here.
Take care.
All right, bye.